Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm absolutely delighted to be here today at the 25th anniversary of the Family Resource Centre programme. And as we know, our state, our country is a little over 100 years old. And, you know, to put into perspective, for over a quarter of its existence, Family Resource Centres have been there helping, advocating for, and really acting as a linchpin for communities all over our country. And since I've entered office in this department, I've made an effort to try and visit as many family resource centres as possible, including Mount View Family Resource Centre in my own constituency. I gather I missed the Zumba Goldies earlier on, but by all accounts, they did a great job. But family resource centres, they've really become the heart of community, and they do represent a vital hub for much needed services and community-focused activity. And I think we all recognise now that a sense of community is more important than ever. And the values and the visions of the National Forum and the members of Family Resource Centres parallels many of my own department's goals. And we share that desire, a desire for an equal, equitable, inclusive, non-discriminatory and active society, a society that encourages communities and the people that make up those communities to live their very best lives. And the goal of the forum is simple. They aim to support, empower and represent family resource centres, and that allows the FRCs themselves remain focused on the services that they provide, creating and influencing positive change in communities and, of course, delivering on the FRC programme. The FRC programme remains Ireland's largest family and community national support programme, delivering universal services in areas across the country. And I want to offer my congratulations to all 121 FRCs nationwide in reaching this 25th anniversary. And I think it is really important to take the time to mark really important milestones like this, but it also represents a really excellent opportunity to bring everybody together, like is being done here today, and I suppose recognise these organisations that are so central to their individual communities. And again, an event like today, it gives key representatives from communities the chance to reflect, very much to share their experiences of the journey to date, and of course, look towards the future as well. FRCs are community-led, or better said, they're community-driven, and they're acutely aware of each individual community's needs in a way that really no other organisation can be. And it takes that collective effort of committed leaders in the community to make FRCs the success they are and to build stronger communities. And I really want to commend the Family Resource Centre National Forum on the publication of their 2022 annual report. And this report is really beneficial in terms of it gives us that collective overview of all the quality work that's conducted by the FRCs across the country. And I think it's important to recognise and indeed to celebrate the good work achieved in family resource centres across the country and to acknowledge the hugely positive impacts that they can have on the lives of people every day. And I'm really pleased to be able to support the wonderful work that goes on in FRCs. And my department, through TUSLA, we provide over €20 million in funding to this programme on an annual basis. And just a snapshot of the work that FRCs are doing around the country from the 2022 annual report. Nearly 92,000 adults and children were the beneficiaries of community-based initiatives. 58,000 children, adolescents and adult couples and families benefited from counselling sessions, and over 40,000 family support sessions were provided. Those are really extraordinary numbers, and it shows how collectively the scale at which FRCs are operating around our country. And it's also obvious that there's an increasing demand for these services. And some of that is a reflection of the times we're going through at the moment. Our society is still recovering from the impact of the pandemic, the increases that we all feel in terms of the cost of living, and of course the effects of the war in Ukraine. And refugees from Ukraine represent the biggest movement in population on the European continent since the Second World War. And since February of 2022, over twice the population of the town of Drogheda has arrived in Ireland fleeing the war in Ukraine. And of course, we've seen refugees fleeing from other wars arriving in Ireland as well. And at all times, F4Cs have been at the very forefront in terms of the response to these crises. And they maintained vital services during the pandemic, and they are also now providing such important services to children and families arriving into Ireland, these new communities fleeing war, fleeing conflict. And having seen the survey conducted by the National Forum last year, my department was in a position to allocate extra funding to TUSLA for use in F4Cs to assist with the needs of those fleeing the war in Ukraine. And like other countries across Europe, Ireland has risen to the challenge that is occasioned by this war. We're currently hosting over 80,000 Ukrainian displaced persons, and the state is directly accommodating 65,000 of those. And of course, an undertaking of that scale in such a short period of time has posed difficulties. And all this response is taking place at a time when we know we have a very real, a very acute housing crisis in our country. But in dealing with this matter, a key issue for me in my department, what's absolutely important is communication and the ability to dispel misinformation on matters. And I know that once you give people factual information, by and large, the vast majority of communities rally to support people fleeing to Ireland, be they from Ukraine, be they from other countries. And I always recognise that the government couldn't have mounted this scale of humanitarian response to the war in Ukraine, to other wars, if it wasn't for the support of communities right across the length and breadth of our country. And your organisations in so many of those communities have been absolutely central to that. We all know the Family Resource Centre programme is designed to allow communities identify their particular needs and identify the responses to those needs and the needs of families within their local area. And the National Forum acts as that umbrella body, and it reinforces F4Cs in their work and allows them to stay focused on communities. And F4Cs place community engagement at the core of absolutely everything they do to make sure that they can best respond to the needs of the community in a very real sense. And indeed, the National Forum has the F4Cs as its own community. And it's clear that supporting the well-being of your community is absolutely at the heart of every single thing that you do. And the relationship that has developed between TUSLA areas, TUSLA commissioning, the F4Cs, and the National Forum, it means that the use of provided core funding is being maximised, and it allows for engagement around additional activity and the potential for pilot schemes to be explored. Many of those schemes make real impacts on the lives of people. As you know, last year an additional 4% in funding was provided for F4Cs to begin. I recognise it's only to begin to address sustainability issues that so many of your organisations have experienced. I really want to applaud and recognise the National Forum and the F4Cs in their continuous efforts to leverage and attract funding from other state actors, or indeed often from the private sector. And there's been great successes, and I would strongly encourage the exploration of any and all additional funding sources, including any European, any EU social funding available. As we've seen in other areas, a whole of government approach can be the most effective approach. And given the broad range of services that F4Cs provide on behalf of a wide range of government bodies, it's welcome that funding is sourced from a number of sources, with the core funding being provided by my own department through TUSLA. And with a major focus on combating child poverty, and now a dedicated team working in the Department of Taoiseach on this issue, I hope the unique position and experience of F4Cs will mean they play an important role, or continue to play an important and elevated role in the fight against child poverty. And evidence demonstrates that the wraparound support at local level is the best way to create and sustain resilient children, resilient families, and resilient communities. The universal accessibility of family resource centres allows for the early identification of need and the provision of appropriate interventions, with the ability to make referrals for appropriate services for more targeted needs as they are required. This kind of communal space and targeted support is so important for community well-being, and it helps everybody in the community to achieve positive outcomes and helps to prevent other more serious problems developing further down the line. And the positive impacts that family resource centres have on children, on families, and on local communities is readily apparent. And I see the value of this work firsthand on my visits to FRCs around the country, and it is always impressive to see the array of services and programs available, but also how they are targeted to what that particular community, that particular town really, really needs. So from family support to health education, after-school clubs, counselling, and more, again, that ability that family resource centres are empowered to identify what gap exists, what pressure is apparent within their own area, and how they can leverage funding from our department, from other sources, and indeed how they can link families, link children in with mainstream services. That ensures that we provide a range of universal but also targeted supports to those who need them most. So today, I know, is very much about looking back over the last 25 years, but I think it's also an opportunity to look towards the future. And I know the National Forum has begun that work already with the upcoming 5-year strategy. And within my own department, we're currently drafting the performance framework for TUSLA, which will apply for the next 3 years. And I'll be looking at actions for TUSLA to carry through in their corporate plan relevant to family resource centres, laying out activity over the next 3 years. And with a view to looking at options to stabilise the current programme, safeguard its approach to working with all aspects of the community, and giving serious consideration to potential approaches for the future expansion of the programme. So look, it's been a great pleasure for me to be invited here. I really, really appreciate that invitation. As I said, I have met quite a number of you here individually within your own individual communities, but today is an opportunity to recognise what you as a collective have achieved over the last 25 years. And I look forward, and my department looks forward, to continuing to do all we can to support the amazing, the genuinely changing work that you all undertake. Thank you very much.